Hello. Today what we're going to do is take a look at using Greenstone to create a simple HTML collection. So the content files we're going to use are on the course website at faculty FIMS-UWO.ca Nickerson 9720D content files, and the one you want is this one called simple HTML. You can right click on the zip icon and save link as to download it to your computer. And once you've got it down there, you can double click on it and extract out the files, copy out the files. So I've already done that, and here you see there's actually 3 web pages that were downloaded off the internet using Firefox. Each web page has associated files with it. When you go to download something off Firefox as a web page, you can do File, Save Page As, and what you see down here is 2 options. Normally what you want to do is web page complete, because that gets all the graphics and everything else as with a web page. So that's what's been done here. So we've saved them down. Now what happens when you download a file that has associated files like pictures, they're all put in a folder. So here we are, the pictures for this one. We see pictures of Catherine. Here's some of Anne, I think, right? So what we're going to do is now bring these into Greenstone. So let's switch over to the GLI. I'll put away my web browser, and I'm going to create a new collection. So let's do File, New, and I'm going to call it G Knickers. Start, and it's an English history collection for a course on the tutors. Okay. Click OK, and it creates the blank collection. Now, what we're going to first do is gather things. So it's off to the Gather tab, local file space. We'll expand that. And I'm going to go to Drive F, where I've got my content organized. So it's in Courses 9720D Content is where I put it. And here's our folder that I extracted the files I downloaded. So actually I can just drag the whole thing in, or I could hold down the Shift key and click all of these and then drag and drop. So I'm going to drag them into the collection folder and drop them down here. So we've got 3 HTML files imported along with their associated images and things like that. Now what we probably want to do next is get rid of some of the things we don't want. So I'm going to click off Design, and I'm going to look at the browsing classifiers. The file name one is never needed, so you want to remove that one. It's just going to make your building of a collection too much lengthier. Search indexes, you don't need to search file names. I want to remove that one. You probably don't need to search the titles as well. We got the full text in there, so I'm going to remove the title index. I'll leave the full text one that's going to search all the words in the documents, and I'll leave this index, which is a simple list for titles. Now I'm going to create and build the collection. Okay, the collection has been built. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to take a look at the Enrich tab first, because I want to see what metadata is coming in. Now again, we don't have any manually added ones, so it's the automatic extracted metadata. We see really by default all you get is the title. So there's an EX title down here that contains the title of the document. Now there is a few other things in there. It's been improved. We have an EX HTML content, an EX title, and a bunch of other things. Okay, so there is a title now. So there's some new things in the HTML plugin that process these files. We see there's a bunch of other stuff that's been added. You can modify how the plugins work. If I click on Design, I can see what's processing my files, my content files. Here's the HTML plugin. I'm going to double click that, and I can choose some things to do for that. For example, right now you see by default normally all it's going to get is title. So I could actually add to this by putting in different things. For example, if there's other metadata in the file, I can add to it. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll come back to that later. I'll click OK. What we want to do now is just take a look at our collection and see what it is. So let's go off to the Create tab and click Preview, and it'll load it up into the web browser. So we have the full text search engine. Let's search some things. This will search anything. And we have some title. And we have a browsable index or classifier based on titles. We see we have the 3 documents we brought in. The first icon in column 1 is to the actual document, the greenstone converted one, which is a web page. Now, since this content files are web pages, there's really both the same, and here it is. Here's our document. Now the document is displayed down here. This is the document header. It consists of the title and some buttons we can do. We can detach this into a separate web browser. We can turn off highlighting for search and things like that. So the first column has our converted document. Now we saw in the PDF ones that there were 2 columns, the converted document and the original source. Well, the benefit of HTML files is you don't have that. And with PDFs, you've got the original source one and the converted one, and it depends on how well the conversion is done, whether you want to keep it. If you're using files that have no text, images, MP3s, videos, when you click on this, it's empty. You get nothing in here. So you have to then get rid of that. So sometimes it's useful to have HTML files. Now this display is not all that good. We probably want to fiddle with that a little bit. And a couple other things we're going to need is some indexes. For example, we just have titles. What about authors? What about subjects? We'll come to those in part 2. But before we get to part 2, let's do one more thing with this. Let's fix up this display a little bit. So I'm going to switch over to the GLI, and if you click on Format, Format Features, and choose Feature, what you want is your list index. This is our straight list. Now if you look down in here, there's 3 columns in this HTML table, and the last part is displaying the file name. You can see it up here. There it is, Aragon HTML. Well, that's rather useless. In fact, it's totally useless. You don't really want to display the file name. No one needs to know that. So what we're going to do is replace that with something more useful. Now, I've already clicked on Add Format. So if this is gray, click on Add Format down here, and then you can go in and edit this HTML format string. So I'm going to replace, I'm going to click on it, I'm going to backspace over EX source. So I'm going to replace it with HTML.author. So we saw the HTML plugin bring in new data called HTML author, so let's use that. Now we may also want to display what this is. So what we're doing here, we've got an expression that says if HTML author. This means if this exists, if there's something in there, whatever comes after the comma is what we'll do. So we're going to put a blank line in, that's HTML. We're going to make it italic, and we're going to display the actual value of HTML author. So let's put in blank line, something like maybe bold author colon bracket slash B bracket. So that'll bold it. Then the author's name will be put in brackets and italic. Do we need it in italic? No, I don't think so. I'm going to delete the italic. Do we need it in brackets? No, I don't think so. So I'm going to delete the italics and the brackets. There we are. So what we got now is this. If HTML author exists, put a carriage return in, put a label in bold, then display it. Now, once we've done that, all we have to do is return to our web page and refresh, and we should see. And there it is. So they're all written by the same person, so it doesn't really matter. There it is. So there's the author stuff. So now we have a little bit of formatting. Now what we're going to do in part 2 is look at additional access points, such as an author index. Okay, what we want to do now is create an author index. We have our title one, which is a simple browse index, suitable for A to Z stuff. But index with categories, like authors or subjects, are a bit more complicated. So what we're going to do is go into the GLI here, and it's off to the Design tab, where we're going to create a new browsing classifier. So you want to click on Browsing Classifier. There's our author index, simple list type. We're going to actually select a classifier from the list here. It says select classifier to add. It's a pull down, and there's all kinds in here. We want an A to Z compact list. This is one that has sections in it. and we're going to then click Add Classifier. It's going to ask us how do we want to configure it. Let me bring that over. We don't want the metadata to be DC title. What we're going to do here is we're going to click this and we can browse through the ones we want. We want EX HTML author because these were imported when we brought in our HTML pages. It's very handy. So it extracted the author out of the metadata in the web page. That's in the head section. Now if there was no metadata there, we wouldn't have got that author one. So thankfully they had that in there. Now we probably want to change the label for this to something like, let's call it browse authors. Though I think, let's call it authors. If you see an authors index, most people would probably know what it is. Excuse me, I'm going to click OK. There it is. Okay, let's do a create. Click create, do a build, and we'll build the collection. Okay, building is done, so let's click on preview. The benefit of preview is we have our previous collection, how it looked like in this tab, and now we have a new one. You notice there's a new authors index. So let's click it, see what it looks like. There's only one author, so we have one entry or node in our index under Marilee Mongello. You notice why does it come this way? Well, because authors' names are displayed as they occur in the database. In this case, we've extracted them out from the web pages, so they look like wherever they're in the web page. And actually, we can take a look at the web page. Here's the actual page. We could actually view the content of it. Tools, Web Developer, Page Source. And we'll see inside here, when we get down to it. Here it is. Yeah. Nope. Sorry, a bit more. Source. I want to see the metadata. Unfortunately, it's not going to show it to us because that's the Greenstone converted one. So, but if you look inside these files before you bring them in, you'll see. Well, actually, I can do it in the GLI. I'll go off to the GLI into the enriched one, and here they are here. So I can actually open this. I can double click it, and I'll open it in here, and I should be able to tools. Web Developer Page Source. You view the source. There it is. And you can see up here in the head section. So all HTML pages have a head section where you can put metadata. This is where you can actually catalog a web page. We see here there is a metadata entry for author, and the way it's put in is first name, last name. Not a good decision, but yeah, that's what she did. So let's go back. So what you're going to get here under authors is based on what's in there. So we see it is Marilee Mongello in the database. That's what we're going to get. You notice it's collated all three of her articles under her name. So it's working. But what we want to do next is maybe improve some of this. Now the way to improve it is go off to the GLI to the Enrich tab where we can select one of our files. We have three, and we'll see the metadata for it. There's the EX HTML author, the extracted metadata. I'm going to scroll up to DC Creator where we can put in Mongello, comma, what's her name? Marilee. Okay. The next one, Chris Boylan, we can put in a DC Creator. Mongello. You notice the values are going down here. We could actually just select it for the third one. We could actually just select this value. We have a list of existing values and put that in for DC Creator. So now we have cataloged it correctly using last name, first name. So they'll be collated all right here. What we got to do next is tell the index to use this data, to override what came in from the extracted. So it's back to the design. And we got to look at our browsing classifiers. There's our A to Z compact list one there. So I'm going to double click it. This is our author one. You see the metadata is using HTML author. We want to change that. So I double click it, and rather than using EX author, I'm going to add in DC Creator. DC period CREATOR. And I'm going to put a semicolon. The reason I'm going to do the semicolon is it's going to look for this first. So if there's something in DC Creator, it will use that, but maybe I don't have some I've added, then it's going to use EX HTML author. Let's do OK. Now because we made a change to an index, we've got to rebuild. So click Create, click Build, and it will rebuild the collection. Okay, the rebuilding is done. Let's take a look. Let's do a preview. It loads it into a new tab. Here's our authors one. So now it's correct. Mongello Merrily. We can compare this by going to our previous tab, and there was our old one. It was backwards. So now we've got it right, and the same three documents are displayed. Our next task, now we've got the authors working, would be to format this a little bit. One of the things is here is that you've got this author listed in the index node as an entry, but we never see the actual author. How do we know it's correct? We better display the author's name down here so that the user will know these are in fact the correct records for this author. Now we can format the index by going to the GLI, clicking on Format, Format Features, and selecting that particular index from Choose Feature. Right now it's set to CL1, which is our titles one. So we can select from that pull down CL2, and it says the DC Creator button name authors. That's the index we want. Now it's grayed out, so we can't change it, so we have to click Add Format. Now that'll allow us to make a change. So what we're going to do is make a fairly simple change. We'll replace the file name, which is called EXSource, with our author. So let's go down here and replace that with DC Creator. So if now you notice we have an if here, so before. So if DC Creator contains data, what are we going to display? Well, I would think let's display the author. See? EATR. Now, once we've done that, we can go up here and refresh our page, and there it is. Now, we haven't added a label saying author. We probably should do that, and that would let people know that that's the author. But I think that maybe they could figure that out. So we could modify this format statement again to add more things, change what it's going to look like. We'll do that in upcoming things. There's other things we could modify as well. You notice in this format features thing, it has a whole bunch of things you can modify. For example, let's look at document text. What is document text? Well, that's the actual document. It's the text of it. We could modify that if we wanted by putting something here. So that text thing in square is the actual text. If you wanted to add something to it, you could. So we could put something over it. Let's do a simple, how about an HR? Let's just put a line over it. How's that? What would it look like? Let's go over here and click on one. Now we have a line over it. See, there's a line. Simple. So we can add things before or after the document text. So we've kind of added like a little header, but there's in fact a header as well. See this? Oh, you know those buttons there? When you go into one that says attach, detach, don't like them. Let's click this. Document buttons. Let's get rid of them. Now if you go back to one of these, you'll notice the document buttons are gone. So it looks a little nicer. Now what's this part up here? This is the document header, which basically puts the title in by default. We don't like that. We can change it. So let's go to document heading. There it is. We could double click that, and here's document heading, and it's putting that in. Let's not put that in. Let's get rid of that. You could put something in if you wanted to. You could put something like, ooh, I don't know. Let's put another HR. Let's make it big. Size equals 9 pixels, and let's give it a color. Cool. So, yeah, it's a rather silly thing to do, but we could do that. Okay, what would that look like? So that's going to go on top of each document. Let's go back to our web page and refresh, and we'll see we now have a big, thick brown line on top. If we don't like the thick brown line, you can actually go over and get rid of it. And now we go back and refresh, we'll see it's gone. So we just have this little line above that. So we can format many different levels of our documents. There's the index level. In this case, it's an index with nodes, bookshelves. There's a index display level. In this case, it's the records here. And there's a document text level, which is the actual document, consisting of the document and a optional document header. Simpler indexes only have the index record level here, with the indexes displayed, and a document level down here. So that should give you some ideas about HTML. HTML files are very, very handy and useful to work with if the quality is good. One of the things we'll see in upcoming ones is if the quality of the HTML is bad, it may not work that well.